Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and today I'm going to be giving my match predictions for week 20 Premier League fixtures, and we are set for a treat for a load of great games coming up. And we just witnessed on Boxing Day 22 or 23 goals go in. Let's just hope for more drama, more thrills and more goals, because in this Christmas period we have just been entertaining. Let's just hope this continues. And for week 20 Premier League fixtures, it looks like we're in for a treat again. We got some amazing fixtures coming up. We got Leicester versus Liverpool, great players playing against each other. We got Manchester City versus Brentford at Brentford Stadium, a newly promoted side looking to make their stamp yet again against the top 6 side. And we also got other amazing games at Chelsea going against Brighton as well. However, going into the sale fixtures, like I always say, make sure you guys like, comment and hit that big subscribe button right there. Make sure you guys in the comment section give me your own predictions. Who do you think is going to win in week 20 Premier League fixtures? So the first game I'm going to be predicting is quite obvious, isn't it? It's Leicester versus Liverpool, and I think this is going to be the best game in terms of this week's fixtures in terms of the Premier League. And ironically, we just witnessed both these teams clash in the quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup, where Liverpool literally fielded a weakened team because of COVID, and we know Jurgen Klopp doesn't really take this competition seriously. But Liverpool were still able to win on penalties against a very strong Leicester side, which saw Rodgers filled out a very good side. And do you guys think that this is going to show any sort of impact of what's going to happen in this game? Do you think the result's going to be very similar? Because if Leicester weren't able to beat a Liverpool side which didn't have their best players, how on earth are they going to beat a Liverpool side with players returning from COVID and injuries, and we've had a week's rest? But we all know football doesn't work like that. It's not in a straight line. Teams can win 5-0 and then they can play the same team yet again and lose 2-0. But going into this game, as a Liverpool fan, I'm quite optimistic. Everything's pointing towards Liverpool's favour. Liverpool have had their rest. Their game against Leeds was postponed, so they've had their 7 to 8 games resting in terms of this fixture, whereas Leicester have played 3 games in 6 days, showing that they're going to be physically tired going into this game against Liverpool, who are no slouches even if they're playing at the King Power Stadium. Other reasons why as well, Leicester literally just played against Manchester City away from home at the Etihad and conceded 6 goals. And when you play against Manchester City, it's no easy game. They make the pitch big, you have to keep chasing the ball. So obviously playing 3 games in 6 games is hard enough, but playing in your last fixture against Manchester City, who we know keep the ball, tiki-taka football, make you chase around like you're a bunch of dogs, they're going to be physically tired in that department as well. And the main reason as well why I think Liverpool are going to win, because Liverpool have already played them twice this season and they have won the first time, especially convincingly. Overloads in the fullback departments with their triangles with Trent Alexander-Arnold, Henderson and Salah proved vital for Liverpool winning that game against Leicester. And obviously we're not going to have Robertson on the other side, but the Shikmas has shown signs when he does come into the side, when Robertson is injured, he can do a job. Leicester just conceded 6 goals away from home against Manchester City, and I know Manchester City have been scoring a lot of goals against many sides this season, but so have Liverpool with their front three pretty much leading the Golden Boot race. So going into this game, Liverpool players, especially the forwards, must be licking their lips that they have an opportunity to stat pad in terms of the Golden Boot race, because we know Leicester are vulnerable at this moment when it comes to defending goals. So going into this game, I do want to say it's going to be straightforward, but we never know Leicester on their day, because they still have quality players like Maddison scoring 6 goals in his last 8 games, returning to form. You got Vardy, Daka, whoever they're going to start. Even Iheanacho, Leicester fans were calling out to him to start his next game. So they do have good players who on their day can disrupt Liverpool. However, I feel like Liverpool are going to be hungry. They're going to have the desire going into this game, especially since Chelsea and Manchester City both won their games this week. So I'm expecting Liverpool to bounce back from their dreadful result against Tottenham away from home, and I expect them to win away from home against Leicester, and I'm going to go for a 3-1 victory for Liverpool. So the next game I'm going to be predicting is Chelsea versus Brighton, and in my opinion, I think this is going to be a decent match to watch. We got both sides who have been in iffy form recently, especially in the Christmas period, not able on a consistent basis to pick up wins, but both were able to win their last games against their respective opponents. Chelsea beating Aston Villa, and then we had Brighton beating Brentford at home as well. So going into this game, both teams are going to look to build some momentum going into the new year to literally try to achieve their objectives in the Premier League this season. But going into this game, let me just start with the home side, Chelsea. And we know they've been struggling at home to pick up wins this season, especially in their last 3 or 4 games or so, drawing to Manchester United, drawing to Burnley as well, and Everton as well. So should we expect Chelsea to drop points yet again at Stamford Bridge? Or can they turn this around and make this a fortress again, winning games at the stadium? Because it's going to be very important for them if they have any real ambition going for the title race. But let me start with the home side like I've been talking about right now. Chelsea just facing Aston Villa, and overall, I don't feel like this was vintage Chelsea. I feel like this was scrappy, they were gritty, and they got the win in the end. And I feel like it was a tale of two halves. First half, they have no real fluidity in their style of play, no real direction or ambition when it comes to tiki-taka football around the front three. There was no real gelling in terms of going forward, but it all changed in the second half when they had Lukaku, a focal point where you had players like Mount and other players as well to play off him, which allowed them to have more touches, be a more threat and a nuisance in the opponent's penalty area. And we saw this work a treat, that focal point Lukaku was able to score the all-important goal in 6 minutes coming on. And it was just a testament to how important Lukaku is to this side, because in the space of 45 minutes, he won the man of the match, and I can't disagree with this. Chelsea are way better with him playing up front, especially if they want to play Tuchel ball, where we know it heavily relies on them using the width, Alonso and the other wing back, if it's Reece James, Hudson-Odoi, or even Pulisic, we saw at times against Aston Villa, crossing the ball in, which was vital for Lukaku getting that goal. So going into the game against Brighton, I expect to see a much better link-up play for the front three, especially since Lukaku should be starting this game against Brighton since he's fit and he just recently scored his goal against Aston Villa. But Brighton aren't going to be any slouches. Chelsea shouldn't expect this to be an easy win, because we just saw Brighton beat Brentford comfortably 2-0, with Trossard having another consistent amazing game against Brentford and Mbappe scoring the all-important goal to seal the game. But Chelsea defensively, despite their poor recent form, have been good. Blocks, tackles, getting in the way when it came to Aston Villa having a lot of shots. If you saw the game, maybe Aston Villa didn't have many shots on target, but that's because the Chelsea players were kept throwing their body in the way to intercept any of these shots challenging Mendy. So going into this game, I feel like Brighton are going to find a much tougher test trying to break down this great, resilient Chelsea side when it comes to defensive style of football. But going into this game, I think Chelsea are going to win. They are the home side. I feel like they're going to try build momentum. Since they have their key striker back, I think we're going to see much more fluidity, much more movement, so much more consistently in the front three and the final third when it comes to creating chances and be dangerous against a Brighton defence. I'm going to be predicting a 2-0 victory for Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. So the next game I'm going to be predicting is Brentford versus Manchester City. And if you ask both sets of fans, I think they'll be quite delightful with how their seasons have been going so far this year. We got Brentford, who are not near the relegation zone, and obviously if they lose the next 3 or 4 games, they can be sucked back in. But at this moment, they'll be pleased staying in the mid-table. And then you got Manchester City, the English champions, still at the top of the Premier League this season. And going into this game, let me just start with the away side, Manchester City, bagging in 17 goals in their last 3 games, literally just scoring 6 against Leicester City. And I know Pep Guardiola won't be happy that they conceded 3 goals in 10 minutes, but their overall performance, especially going forward, was absolutely sensational. People, like I said in my last video, screaming that they need a number 9, they need a striker to score these all-important goals. But does it really matter when you have goals coming up from different areas of the pitch? Isn't this actually better, especially not relying heavily on one single player like Chelsea are looking to do with Romelu Lukaku going into the next 3 or 4 games? Manchester City have been absolutely amazing, and going into this game against Brentford, they should be filled with such confidence that they should be able to beat Brentford fairly comfortably. However, let's not underestimate Brentford, especially how they've been playing against the top 6 sides this season. Arsenal beating them at home, getting a point against Liverpool, 3-3 thriller, and then obviously taking Chelsea right until the death, losing 1-0. So Brentford should be happy, and they should feel optimistic that, especially with their crowd making this a fortress, using their crowd as the 12th man, they should have some sort of hope that they could potentially snatch a point against Manchester City. And this is what leads to my point now when it comes to the overall game. I think it's going to be heart versus playing style. Brentford must make this pitch feel as small as possible. They must get their crowd into it, flying into challenges, winning second balls, winning loose balls, literally trying to make Manchester feel them in terms of their strength, their brute power, literally trying to intercept the ball when they can, try to disrupt Manchester City's rhythm and flow when it comes to fluidity in their style of play. Because if they let Manchester City play with their tiki-taka football and the crowd starts to settle down and the game starts to be about football, we know Manchester City over a 90-minute period will start to make the game theirs, and Brentford will not be able to keep a clean sheet. However, like I said, I feel like this is going to need a lot of luck for Brentford to be able to keep Manchester City shut over 90 minutes. Ivan Toney's going to be so pivotal holding the ball up against Diaz and Laporte to give his defenders a moment's rest, because they're going to be under a relentless after relentless of attacks. But going into this game, I think football is going to prevail. I think Manchester City have too much quality in the final third. They've been playing with such confidence on a 9-game winning streak, and Brentford just lost their recent game against Brighton. So I expect Manchester City to pick up all 3 points. Footballing style, they're just superior, and they got the superior players, like I said. So I'm going to be predicting a 3-0 comfortable victory for Brentford, especially if Manchester City score early. The 12th man is going to be evaporated. So the next game I'm going to be predicting is Southampton versus Spurs. Both teams recently winning their last game on Boxing Day, and both teams looking to use this sort of game to build on so they can literally build momentum going into the new year. And in terms of this game, if we get anything like we did last year, the 5-2 thriller, we're in for a treat, because in football we just want goals and we just want to see epic clashes like we saw last year between these two sides, where we saw Spurs score 5 at St. Mary's. But going into this game, let me just start with the away side, and I feel like Conte is starting to mould this Tottenham side into his own. His personality, his charisma is starting to be epitomised on the pitch with the passion, the power, the brute strength. Boys becoming men within that midfield for Tottenham. Before, they felt flimsy, they felt like they could get got at, they could be bullied off the ball, but especially in the game against Liverpool, they stood up to a Liverpool side despite having their weak midfield, but they were still able to go toe-to-toe with them within the midfield battle and show that they will not be bossed around. And that's what Conte epitomizes. Passion, desire, winning balls, winning fouls. Tottenham are still yet to lose a game under Conte in the Premier League, and we are starting to see signs of their forwards, especially, who were so pivotal for them last year, getting 7th or 8th in the Premier League table, starting to get into form. Players like Kane and Son scoring in the same game. When was the last time we saw these duos start to score goals like that in the same game? And going into this game against Southampton, I feel like Southampton match well for Spurs. We know Southampton like to press, be on the front foot, especially when the ball goes into the midfield. They want to make sure you feel under pressure, trying to make another pass and literally try win those loose balls so they can start their attack in the dangerous part of the pitch. If Tottenham can play through them, if Tottenham can be brave on the ball, show courage, show ambition instead of kicking the ball long or passing the ball sideways, and play through Southampton and their press, they're going to have a lot of time and space, especially in the wide areas, to make overloads, to try create crosses and score goals, which they've been doing this season, especially under Conte. We just saw in the last game against Crystal Palace at home winning 3-0. All 3 goals came from crosses. Players like Emerson and Reguilon are starting to literally perform amazing when they don't have that defensive responsibility and just bond forward when it comes to creating chances for their forwards. So if Tottenham can literally be press resistant and break out of this Southampton press, I think they're going to bode well. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory away from home, and I think Tottenham are going to consistently build on terms of this, in terms of the top 4 race. So the last game I'm going to be predicting is Everton versus Newcastle, and let's be honest, both sides, both managers, maybe not Eddie Howe, but especially Rafa Benitez, are feeling the pressure going into this game because they need the 3 points. Everton, let me just start with them. They have only won 1 game since September. How abysmal, how pathetic. And I know Everton fans are going to say they've had injuries, they suffered from COVID, but many teams have suffered from injury and COVID, and there's ways of losing football games. The way Everton have been losing football games is just unforgivable. Going into this game against Newcastle, they should feel at least some optimism that they can get a result, just because of how poor Newcastle have been this season, not because of how well Everton have been performing. But going into this game, both sides need the 3 points, like I said. Even Newcastle, who are in the relegation zone, looking to build some sort of momentum because they're going to have a set of nice fixtures coming up. So they keep picking up points to survive the relegation battle. But going into this game tactically, let me just start with Everton. I know Rafa Benitez tactically wants to be cautious, wants to sit back and defend as a unit and be compact, but you can't do this, especially at Goodison Park, competing against literally Newcastle, who are literally bottom of the league and have the second worst defence in the league as well. You're supposed to be on the front foot. The fans aren't going to be rocking up at Goodison Park in literally freezing temperatures to literally see your team park the bus and have no real ambition or purpose going forward. Yes, you have injuries. Yes, you don't really have the confidence, but playing against Newcastle, like I said, you should go on the front foot because they've been conceded goals after goals, especially in the last few games against Leicester, Liverpool, and even Manchester City. Rafa Benitez has really struggled trying to win the Goodison fans' hearts in terms of his managerial reign at Everton this season, But literally the one thing they will appreciate is if you go on the front foot, try create chances, try create opportunities for your forwards to score goals, to literally entertain them, because they have not been entertained for a while. Obviously Everton got a positive result away from home against Chelsea, the European champions, playing the youthful players. Let's see if Rafa Benitez will stick with this, because obviously they've had injuries and COVID cases as well, so they might have to rely on this youth again. And the Everton fans will be happy and appreciate that you're trusting the youth again, because you should repay them back considering the fact that they picked up points against the European champions. However, going into this game against Newcastle, Everton are going to have their work cut out. Newcastle are a desperate team, and we know what they say in football. Desperate teams are literally sometimes the worst teams to go against, because they're going to try anything and they're not going to give you a moments of rest, because they desperately need their 3 points. Going into this game, I don't think Rafa Benitez will come out roaring and try literally go on the front foot against Newcastle. I feel like they will get the first goal, but Rafa Benitez will go back in the show and try solidify a 1-0 victory. But at the end of the day, Newcastle are desperate, and they do have enough quality in the final third, I believe, if St. Maximin does start with players like Wilson as well, to get a draw against Newcastle. So at Goodison Park, yet again, I feel like they will struggle to pick up points, and I think it's going to end as a 1-1 draw.